When we talk about World War II, there's one sound that immediately brings that era to life. A short, sharp burst of automatic fire. Not from a machine gun nest or an aircraft cannon, but from something smaller, held tight in the hands of a man in a field gray uniform. That sound was the MP40. At first glance, it doesn't look like much. A simple tube of steel, a folding stock, and that iconic curved magazine. But behind this unassuming design was one of the most recognizable weapons of the entire war. A gun that became a symbol of the German Wehrmacht. The story of the MP40, or Maschinenpistole 40, began not as a masterpiece of German engineering, but as a practical response to a modern problem. By 1938, the German army realized that traditional rifles like the Kar 98K were no longer enough for the kind of fast, mechanized warfare they were planning. They needed something compact, automatic, and reliable for the new age of blitzkrieg. The result was an evolution from the earlier MP38, made with expensive machined steel, to the cheaper, faster-to-produce MP40, built largely from stamped metal parts. It was mass production meeting military necessity. By 1940, the MP40 was in the hands of paratroopers, tank crews, and squad leaders. And soon, it would earn its reputation on the battlefields of Europe, North Africa, and the Eastern Front. Now, when you read about the MP40 online or watch videos about it, you'll find a lot of words like iconic, innovative, and legendary. But if you ask the men who actually carried it, the truth becomes far more complicated. In many post-war interviews, soldiers described the MP40 with a tone that was neither pride nor hatred, but something in between. A kind of weary respect. One veteran, Karl Hoffmann, who served in the 2nd Panzer Division, said in an interview in 1964, "It looked modern, yes, sleek, simple, but when mud got into it, you prayed it wouldn't jam when you needed it most." That was the reality. The MP40 wasn't perfect. It was just the weapon they had. Despite its fame, very few soldiers actually carried one. Most of the Wehrmacht still fought with bolt-action rifles, accurate but painfully slow in close combat. The MP40, on the other hand, fired 9mm rounds at about 500 shots per minute. That made it controllable, smooth, and ideal for short bursts. But the range, that was another story. It was effective only up to about 100 meters, and on the vast, open steppes of the Eastern Front, that was a problem. A diary entry from a soldier stationed near Smolensk reads, "We love how fast it fires, until it doesn't. When the cold bites the steel, you hit it against the ground, curse and pray it works again." That sentence says everything. The MP40 was not a weapon that forgave you for your environment, and yet, soldiers developed a strange attachment to it. The folding stock made it practical inside tanks or vehicles. Its weight, just under 4 kilograms, made it light enough to carry all day. For men constantly on the move, it became a part of their identity. One paratrooper, Hans Richter, remembered the first time he saw the new weapon. "When our platoon received the MP40, we gathered like children. It looked like something from the future. It made us feel like we were part of something greater, part of the new German army." It's easy to forget that psychology played a huge role in war. For soldiers, the MP40 wasn't just a gun. It was a symbol of progress, of power, of pride, even when it failed them. Technically, the MP40 had some brilliant design features. Its slow rate of fire made it easier to control than most submachine guns of the era. It was also one of the first weapons to use a straight-line recoil design, meaning it stayed on target better during automatic fire. But there was one critical flaw. the magazine. The double-stack, single-feed system was fragile, and even a small dent could jam the entire weapon. Dirt, sand, or frozen mud made it unreliable, a deadly problem in the East. A Luftwaffe ground mechanic once wrote in his journal, "The MP40 is a city weapon. It likes clean hands and dry air. The front gives it neither," and he was right. The gun was designed for a different kind of war, one fought with movement, precision, and machinery, not endless snow and mud. Still, not all stories were negative. Some veterans described the MP40 as a lifesaver, especially in close combat. Sergeant Erich Müller, who fought near Kharkov in 1943, told his son years later, "We were ambushed in the forest. 3 of us left. I fired in short bursts, and the weapon felt alive, like it was breathing with me. At that moment, I didn't care if it jammed tomorrow. It worked when I needed it to." That story always stuck with me, because it reminds us that in war, a weapon doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to work when it matters. By 1943, some German soldiers began to envy their enemies. They called the Soviet PSH-41 the sewing machine. Crude, heavy, but devastatingly effective. It had a 71-round drum magazine and rarely jammed. Many German troops captured them and used them instead of their MP40s. A Wehrmacht officer admitted later, "We took the PPSH from the Russians. It was ugly, but it never failed." You start to realize that in war, beauty means nothing. That statement captures the whole contradiction of the MP40. It was a marvel of design, but not always of function. It looked perfect, but war is not a place for perfection. By the final years of the war, the MP40 became a ghost of its former image. It could still be seen in the hands of weary soldiers retreating through shattered cities, a weapon that once symbolized conquest, now reduced to survival. And yet, after the war, the MP40 refused to die. Captured units spread across the globe, used in Yugoslavia, Norway, Israel, even by resistance fighters in Africa. It became a relic of the past that refused to fade away. If you look at one today, maybe in a museum or a private collection, it's almost impossible not to feel something. This simple, dark weapon has seen things we can only imagine. It stood in the ruins of Stalingrad, in the deserts of North Africa, and in the forests of France. It was held by men who fought, feared, and hoped, each with their own opinion, each with their own story. One of the last surviving German veterans, interviewed in 1982, summed it up best. The MP40 was like the men who carried it. Proud, dangerous, and not made for the mud. But when it worked like nothing else today. The MP40 is more than just a gun. It's a memory, a piece of history that reminds us how even the most advanced weapons are still tools in the hands of ordinary men. Men who laughed, cursed, froze, and survived with it by their side. And when you hear that sharp, metallic burst in an old film reel or a museum demonstration, you're not just hearing a machine. You're hearing the echo of 1,000 stories from soldiers who once called it both their friend and their curse.